The good times, well, they didn't really roll that well in 2021. And now they're ushering in a completely new era in the Big Easy, which I think I mentioned this in my season recap. It might become the Big Hard. Yes, not as hard as my, you know what, or their, you know what. I'm sorry. But anyway, it's a completely new era for New Orleans football. And why do I say that? Well, in 2021, the first half of the new era of New Orleans football began because it was the first season without Drew Brees. 2021, Drew Brees, after they lost to the Bucs in the divisional playoffs, Drew Brees retired. He was on NBC doing his thing, and then here comes Jameis Winston as the successor to Drew Brees. Sean Payton was still there, and then they were actually doing pretty solid. You know, they were 3-2 going into their Week 8 matchup against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucs at home in New Orleans, and Jameis Winston was honestly not that bad. He was pretty solid. He had his down games, of course. He still had those flashes of the 30 for 30 Jameis Winston back in 2019 and, of course, years prior and when he was in Tampa Bay. But other than that, he was pretty solid as the starter for New Orleans in 2021. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL in the second quarter of that game against the Bucs, but they still managed to upset the Tampa Bay Bucs in that game. But from there, it was just downhill. It was just literally downhill. A lot more players on the Saints just got injured. The offense significantly struggled with Trevor, Simien, and Taysom Hill not being able to lead the offense that well. And even with their little experiment with Taysom Hill being the starting quarterback, it just did not work well. It just there was literally nothing going for them. And this was despite the still quality play from Cameron Jordan and Marshawn Lattimore in that defense. But unfortunately, it was just too much to overcome. Now, they did have an opportunity to clinch a playoff spot on the very last day of the regular season. All they needed was some help, but unfortunately, they did not get it because, well, the Rams let that slip away to my 49ers. And the Saints just simply didn't have enough. Even if they did manage to make the playoffs, they would have gotten their asses whooped. They simply would have gotten their asses whooped simply because, well, they just didn't have enough weapons. They didn't have the quarterback that could lead them to an upset over, who knows, a Dallas or a Tampa Bay or the LA Rams. Just simply not the quarterback, whether it's Trevor, Simien, or Taysom Hill, that could lead them to an upset in the first round. So they end their season 9-8. It was pretty much injury riddled all around in that second half of the season. Now, of course, your top goal for 2022 was to assure everyone stays healthy and very much give yourself a fighting chance against the Tampa Bay Bucs in the NFC South because, well, pretty much of everything that's happening in that division. Some of your offseason priorities for the New Orleans Saints from my season recaps was, well, they had to get under the salary cap because I think they were over $50 million. They were negative $50 million before free agency began, and then somehow, some way, they managed to get under that number. They also had to re-sign Jameis Winston because, well, you already knew what Taysom Hill was, and, well, he managed to get a ridiculous contract extension in the middle of the season in 2021, and that was pretty much one of my priorities. You had to restructure his ridiculous contract. But anyway, one of your main priorities was to get Jameis Winston back, and hopefully he recovers fully from his ACL injury. And then you had to address the wide receiver position because, well, it was not good in 2021. You pretty much had no weapons in that year, and Michael Thomas was just not able to play for you at all. So some of the key moves that they made in the offseason, starting with free agency, well, they did manage to re-sign Jameis Winston to a 2-year deal, a team-friendly deal. So Jameis Winston got that team friendly bag. They also signed Traquan Smith, the wide receiver that was mediocre. They made some key moves on the defensive end. They signed 2 players from the Kansas City Chiefs. Tyrann Mathieu returning home, and in New Orleans at least. That's his place that he grew up in. And strong safety Daniel Sorensen, both from the Kansas City Chiefs. They also got a backup safety in Marcus May from the New York Jets. And then, of course, they got a backup quarterback by the name of Andy Dalton. Yes, the Red Rifle from the Dallas Cowboys. So, he played for the Chicago Bears in 2021. See? Dallas Cowboys, Bears football. You can't get enough of the Red Rifle in the NFL. You did lose some key pieces in 2021 during your offseason. And the most important one was Sean Payton, your head coach. 2 weeks after the season ended, he stepped down as head coach. I forgot the reasons why, but he was pretty much just drained. I guess from the look of it, he just looked drained. He just probably didn't want to take a part in the rebuild. But either way, at least Sean Payton did get a Super Bowl. But unfortunately, he just simply couldn't lead his team back to another one with Drew Brees. But Sean Payton, it's a big loss for New Orleans. Dennis Allen is your new head coach for the Saints. And unfortunately, he hasn't exactly had the best track record when it comes to being a head coach, especially when it comes to his time with the then Oakland Raiders, where he had an 8-28 record in his 2 years there. You also lost a key piece of your offensive line, Teron Armstead to the Miami Dolphins, and Marcus Williams, the free safety, to the Baltimore Ravens. But they managed to rectify some of that in the draft by getting Ohio State wide receiver Chris Olave, just in case in the event Michael Thomas can't play. Northern Iowa offensive tackle Trevor Penning, solid tackle by the way. And they also got a corner by the name of Alontae Taylor from Tennessee. So these were actually solid picks in the NFL draft. So the Saints pretty much had a good draft to counter the key losses that they had in free agency. I mean, unfortunately, they can't rectify the one with their head coach, but when it comes to their playing roster, actually a pretty decent draft to counter their losses. Now, whether Dennis Allen can use that very solid roster that's still there, it remains to be seen. It remains to be seen. How does his tenure from the Raiders and his time since then as a coordinator, how does he learn from that experience? How does he transition his experiences to another head coaching opportunity coming this fall? That remains to be seen. Now, Taysom Hill, continuing that topic, he's no longer going to be a quarterback. He's not apparently not going to be on the quarterback chart this coming season because Dennis Allen has moved him to tight end. Yes, he's pretty much going back to that utility player, but it's going to be more committed to the tight end spot, which is pretty weird. So they also are going to make sure that in the event that Michael Thomas can't play, Chris Olave is going to be just top receiver. So they gotta make sure that he pans out. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with Chris Olave. But I think he's a good pickup for New Orleans. He can as long as he builds chemistry with Jameis Winston or whoever's going to be the starter. He can pretty much be that number 1 or number 2 option in that offense. Now, some of their key games in 2022, it's pretty much the first 3 weeks. You're in Atlanta. You're going home to play Tampa Bay in your home opener. And then you go to Carolina. Pretty much your first 3 weeks are within the division. So that's interesting. That's pretty interesting scheduling right there. So that's going to determine what your place is going to be when it comes to competing for an NFC South title. Now, Atlanta and Carolina, they're pretty beatable as long as the defense for New Orleans, they hold up and the offense just has to take care of their part. For Tampa Bay, well, I mean, New Orleans has pretty much they've pretty much been Tom Brady's kryptonite for the last 2 years, at least in the regular season. But, it's a new season. Who knows if things can change or they stay the same. Then you go to, you host the Las Vegas Raiders week 8, Derek Carr and Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow. That electrifying offense, can that Saints defense hold them down? That's going to be a big game in the midway point of the season. Then you go to week 12. Everything will depend on where both teams are in San Francisco against the 49ers. But if they're both in position for a playoff spot, that could be a crucial game. That could be a crucial game for both teams, like tiebreakers, seeding. It could be a crucial game for either team. Now, some of the big questions for New Orleans is like, how's Michael Thomas? How is he after a year, almost a year and a half or two, having not played a single game in the NFL? Like, how is he going to look? Like, is he really fully healthy to play again? Like in the NFL? Because we've heard so many times that he's recovering well, and then he has a setback. So the Saints are hoping that he's finally fully healthy after almost a year, actually a full year of not being healthy to play. So because they badly need him. They badly need them in case Chris Olave doesn't pan out. Now, can Jameis Winston build off the modest success that he had in 2021? He can, but will he? That remains to be seen. Now, I do consider the Saints a sneaky wildcard team, but it all depends on Dennis Allen and how he coaches his team. Jameis Winston, and if he can be more than a modest quarterback than he was in 2021 before he went down with the ACL tear. How the offense around him supports him, and how far the defense can carry him like they did last year. So the Saints can be one of those sneaky wildcard teams, but they can also be a team that misses out and have a losing record of 8-9. So for the Saints, they're not that out of the the playoff race, but they're also not a total rebuilding team, like the team that's close to rebuilding. But we just have to keep our expectations a little low for New Orleans, because they have a solid roster to work with, but it's going to be on Dennis Allen to take them to the next level, or to a level in 2022 to compete with the Tampa Bay Bucks.